Today's Friday before Labor Day episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, brought to you by SeatGeek, our presenting sponsor, the easiest way to shop for tickets, thanks to their revolutionary grading system. Hey, football fans, for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NFL tickets, use promo code BSNFL. Guess what? Football's starting next week. Download the SeatGeek app or go right to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by SimpliSafe. It is the final days of SimpliSafe's Home Security's huge summer sale. $100 off the special summer package. You get a system fully equipped to protect your home and family with alarm monitoring and police dispatch. You'll always know your home is safe. No long-term contract to lock you in. This sale ends September 3rd. That's $100 off. Just go to simplisafe.com/BS. And we're brought to you by Origins. That's a brand new podcast from our old friend, Jim Miller, who goes by the professional name James Andrew Miller. I call him Jim Miller. He wrote the CIA Oral History. He wrote the best-selling ESPN and SNL Oral Histories with Tom Shales. He's also done some great podcasts. On this podcast, we've talked about ESPN, a whole bunch of stuff. In Origins, Jim will be exploring beginnings in the world of film, TV, music, and sports with firsthand stories of the stars who made it happen. Chapter 1, a 5-episode journey into the origins of Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of my favorite shows ever, featuring Larry David and a bunch of other Curb stars. This podcast launches September 6th. It's called Origins. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. I am going to be mad that he didn't do this podcast with The Ringer for about 3 years. We are also brought to you by TheRinger.com, my website. Guess what? Next week, my column returns. The Friday column is back. Oh, it's happening. Fridays, me, TheRinger.com. I have dusted off my fingers. I have wiped off the formaldehyde. I thought they were dead. They're not. It's a little like a Jon Snow type return. My heart stopped. The White Walkers had to bring me back. Who brought Jon Snow back to life, Kyle? The lady in red. I'm such a Game of Thrones moron. Anyway, I'm back. Jon Snow came back. Now I'm coming back. Fridays on TheRinger.com. NFL, couple picks, mailbags. It'll be fun. You'll like it. The Ringer NFL show. Don't forget about that, too. That's coming back. GM Street, Mike Lombardi and Tay Frazier twice a week. The Ringer NFL show. Robert Mays, Kevin Clark. Twice a week. We might have some more football news down the road. Who knows? But check that out. And if you missed the last binge mode Game of Thrones episode, Mallory Rubin, Jason Concepcion, they slowly lost their minds as the 67 episodes over, I think they did over 2.5, 3 months. And they lost their minds during season 7. The last episode was almost 2 hours. We ordered Mallory to take a vacation. She didn't listen to us. We might have to bring the White Walkers in and take her away. But Binge Mode Game of Thrones, thanks to them, thanks to Zach Mack. Very proud of that podcast. We're debating what the next binge mode is going to be. Happy to take your suggestions at the mailbag at TheRinger.com. And by the way, if you want to send NFL questions for my column this season, just send them to the mailbag at TheRinger.com. Coming up, I'm going to talk about the Kyrie trade, some additional thoughts I've had after a week of coverage and reading all the stuff about it. Then we're going to call Kevin O'Connor, who just came from the Kyrie press conference in Boston. And then we're going to wrap it up with Mallory Rubin, who I just mentioned earlier, but I'm grabbing her to talk about baseball, Thrones, college football. We wanted to have Shea Serrano on today, but he is driving back to Houston. We're going to have him on next week, and we're going to talk about everything that happened there, just a flat-out catastrophe. And he wrote about it for TheRinger.com today, which you should read. We're going to have a plan for how to mobilize some of the people that love our site and love listening to this podcast and love Shea, that we will unveil next week. And Shea's going to come on, and we're going to talk about that. Thoughts and prayers to everybody in Houston, and more to come on that front next week on the BS podcast. Right now, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Pearl Jam. All right, we're going to call Kevin O'Connor in a second. Wanted to mention very quickly, I am guest hosting an hour of Yacht Rock on SiriusXM this weekend. I think the first airing of it goes Sunday at noon, but I picked my 12 favorite Yacht Rock songs and laid down some rules for how I think Yacht Rock should go. So if you like Yacht Rock and you're home Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, they'll be rerunning that a bunch of times. Anyway, we did a Kyrie Irving trade podcast, an emergency version of it on Tuesday night, which we ran on the BS podcast. We had a bunch of Ringer people here. It was hilarious, the timing of it, that it worked out. Every NBA writer we had was here. And since then, the trade has evolved into, it was all kinds of drama. There was a point where it almost seemed like the trade wasn't going to happen. Then it finally happened. The Celtics had to give up another second-round pick. I had some thoughts I wanted to get down because there's some things that haven't come out. There's some misconceptions about it, and I just wanted to bang out a whole bunch of stuff first. So the trade goes down Tuesday night. And I didn't tweet this on Wednesday, but a source who I trust called me on Wednesday morning and said the trade might be voided. The Cavs are freaking out about Isaiah's hip. Seems strange. They just made the trade. They hadn't had the physical yet. Why would they be freaking out about Isaiah's hip? Did some research, got Kevin O'Connor involved. We talked to some people who might know from Isaiah's side what might have happened, what was true, what wasn't true. And everybody told us the hip's going to be fine. He's planning on being ready to start the season. We didn't hear anything that made us think that this either was getting floated out or we didn't understand the reasonings behind it. I ended up not tweeting anything about it, and I wish I had, because 2 days later it comes out the Cavs had the physical. They're freaking about Isaiah's hip, and they want another pick. It was exactly what I'd heard 2 days ago, or before the physical. That's pretty strange. So I'm thinking back to what might have happened. I did some more recon on it. I don't know exactly what happened with the Cavs and what made them flip. Here's my theory. Kevin Love and Isaiah Thomas are both represented by XL. They have the same agent, basically. And Isaiah was obviously blindsided by that trade. They didn't know about it until the 24 hours before the trade actually happened. My guess is that Isaiah's agent told Kevin Love, wow, this is crazy. Isaiah might not even be able to start the season. I can't believe they traded for him. Kevin Love tells Ty Lue. Ty Lue tells LeBron. LeBron freaks out. Dan Gilbert then freaks out. And now the entire Cavs organization freaks out. This is the scenario that makes the most sense to me, because we've heard since that LeBron was definitely upset when he found out Isaiah wasn't going to be ready to start the season, because this puts an immense amount of pressure on LeBron now. If they don't have Isaiah to start the year, now you have Derrick Rose is potentially the starting point guard. They don't really have another established go-to scorer except for Kevin Love, who's been put on ice the last couple of years. And I can understand why LeBron would freak out, because this is probably his last year in Cleveland. He's in year 15 of his career. This trade, if Isaiah doesn't come back all the way healthy, this trade made Cleveland worse. The best asset they got from it is the Brooklyn pick, which can't be realized until summer 2018 when LeBron might leave. So I think that played into part of this. And this goes to the second part of what we learned over the last week, which is when this trade was made, it seemed like a lot for the Celtics to give up. And now you come to find out they don't know if Isaiah is going to be ready to start the season. Isaiah is claiming his hip's fine, or is going to be fine, that he's going to be ready. I think the Celtics were not sure of that. Danny Ainge basically admitted as much in the press conference right after the trade. He admitted that the hip played some factor into it. And I think that's why they ended up giving up the Brooklyn pick. I think if you really look at this trade now, the Brooklyn pick seemed like too much, along with Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder and Ante Zizic, the 20-year-old center who might end up being something. But I think what happened was they were pretty upfront with the Cavs from the get-go. Hey, Isaiah's hip, like we don't know. We don't know when he's coming back. He's probably not going to be ready for the start of the season. He might come back within a month. He might not come back until the All-Star break. We don't know. And then that turned into, and then the Brooklyn pick ends up being the result of that. I think if Isaiah was 100% healthy, in my opinion, the trade would have been Isaiah, Jay Crowder, the Memphis pick that they have, which becomes unprotected in like 2021, and maybe the Celtics' own first-round pick, maybe not. But I think that would have been enough, because if you're getting 100 games out of Isaiah, that's a different trade. I think for the Celtics, it's been really interesting to see people, read, hear people think that they overpaid for this trade, because here's what they did. Here's the thinking behind it. They know Isaiah is not going to be ready for the season. They're not sure about his hip. They're looking at a guy who's 5'7", 5'8", who the way he plays is endearingly reckless, takes a ton of punishment, takes a ton of hard falls. He's somebody that I watched for 2.5 years and was terrified every time he went careening into the basket, because he's banging off guys who are a foot taller than him, and he's going flying into the basket support. It always seemed like a candidate to break his wrist or, nail his hip or whatever. And I think there was real fear with the Celtics with his size and the punishment that he had already taken, combined with now this hip injury. This isn't somebody you're going to invest $25 to $30 million in per year. And yet, because he's enough of a star, and because it's so hard to get stars, and because teams are going to have cap space next year, somebody will make a run at him and offer him money if he can prove that he's healthy second half of the year. So they're looking at it like, we're probably losing this guy in a year anyway. They're trading one potentially injury-plagued year of Isaiah. They're trading Jay Crowder, who's immediately expendable because they got Jaylen Brown, who's going to play more. They have Jason Tatum. They got the Morris twin. They have bodies. Jay Crowder was going to lose minutes anyway. Zizic, was a piece they probably didn't want to give up. And then the Brooklyn pick, which I've heard, their analytics team ran a bunch of models on it and determined that there's a probability this pick goes between 5 and 9. Because you have teams in the East. We talked about this on the pod a week ago. You have Atlanta, you have Chicago, you have the Knicks potentially, you have Indiana. Brooklyn, the start of last year and the end of last year, was a pretty good team. It was when Jeremy Lin, I have pretty good meaning a pretty good bad team. But as soon as Jeremy Lin got hurt and they just had the worst point guards in the league, their team fell apart. But near the end, any Celtics fan who was monitoring Brooklyn and watching what was happening with that pick, or worried about what was happening with that pick, was terrified, because Brooklyn would not stop winning. Now, they lost Brook Lopez. They did add D'Angelo Russell and Alan Crabb. Their coach has been there for a full year. They have no incentive to tank whatsoever. And if you look at what the over-unders were that came out last week, I think they were 27.5 or 28.5 wins, and they were tied with a bunch of teams, but there were like 3 or 4 teams below them. So I think the Celtics look at this like, all right, the risk for us is that maybe Isaiah comes back earlier than we think and he's 100% healthy, and maybe this Brooklyn pick ends up winning the lottery. But on the flip side, maybe the Brooklyn pick is 6th, 7th, 8th. Maybe Isaiah is not healthy the whole year. Instead, we get Kyrie, who's 25, who's only going to get better, this is another thing that was frustrating for me to read. I've been in the corner of everybody should try to trade for Kyrie. You've heard on the pod, even before I knew my Celtics, my favorite team, was going to actually get him. I assumed it was going to be Phoenix or somebody like that, but I just thought he is now wildly underrated. This is somebody that's played in huge games, on the biggest possible stages and done really well. It's somebody who made one of the biggest shots on the road in the history of basketball, 2016 Game 7. It's somebody that Golden State could not guard last year. They simply couldn't guard him. This is the best defensive team in the league. They could not guard him. Avery Bradley, who's the best defensive guard at his position, who had done reasonably well against Kyrie off and on over the course of the last couple of years, could not guard him in the playoffs. Game 4, LeBron gets 4 fouls in the first half. The Celtics are going to improbably maybe tie the series and send it back to Boston for Game 5. And Kyrie scores like 33 points in 11 minutes or something. I mean, he was completely unstoppable. He's one of the 7 or 8 most unguardable guys in the league. And I think if the Celtics are looking at this, he's 25. He was in LeBron's shadow. He was not given a lot of the playmaking opportunities that maybe he could have had on a different team. Now, LeBron brings his own set of advantages, obviously. But 4 coaches on the Cavs, I don't think anybody watched that Cavs offense and said it had a shitload of movement. It was a lot of one-on-one slash and kick, spacing, stuff like that. I think with Brad Stevens, the one thing he's proven is that whoever the guy is that's going to be in his system, the guy's going to get good shots. He's going to get open looks. There's going to be all kinds of movement. They're going to get looks they're not usually used to getting. Everybody who's played for Stevens, whether it's Celtics, guys for Butler, the Eastern Conference All-Stars, they love playing in his offense. And I think they looked at it like they think Kyrie has room to grow and be even greater than he is. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes, which is something like the Celtics make everyone shoot threes. Kelly Olynyk, Jared Sullinger, doesn't matter. Marcus Smart was hoisting him up. Kyrie's actually good at shooting threes. They're going to want Kyrie to shoot as many threes as Damian Lillard or Steph Curry shoots. They're going to want him shooting 8-9 threes a game. They think he can be a 30-point scorer in this system. He's certainly a go-to guy. If you're looking at who do you want in a Game 7, just from an unstoppable scorer standpoint, Durant, LeBron, Curry, Harden, Westbrook, Kawhi maybe, and Kyrie. Those would be the 8. I don't think anybody else has proven it on the biggest stages yet. So they're looking at this like, this guy's just better than Isaiah. He's younger than Isaiah. He's somebody that has room to get better. Whereas I think we'd all agree, as much as I love Isaiah, the 3 months he played last year is as good as he's going to be. Isaiah, in the Wizard series, again, I love the guy. I'll defend him to death. But the Wizard series, like against Wall and Beal, was pretty eye-opening. They couldn't figure out who to play him on defense. Kyrie's not a stud on defense. But the Isaiah thing was a real problem. And I think Washington should have beaten Boston that series. I said at the time, they should have won Game 2. Beal missed a 12-footer. I thought Game 7, I thought Scott Brooks just coached a bad game. I thought they had a better team. I thought Boston was lucky to win that series. I think the Celtics themselves think they were lucky to win that series. They got housed by Cleveland in the next round. And, Kyrie, just the upside of what he brings to the table is just better. So you get a healthy lead scorer. The cap stability for the next 2 years cannot be underrated. Now they know exactly how much they're spending on Horford, Hayward, Kyrie, all the young guys. The only thing they have up for grabs now is the Marcus Smart contract extension, which they have some leverage because he got fatter last year as the year went along. I think he put on 15 pounds. Supposedly he's in amazing shape right now in the summer, but the jury is still out. So maybe you get him for 4 years, 45, whatever. You lock down the salary. They made the Cavaliers worse. That's got to be considered an attractive part of this trade. The Cavaliers are worse than they were last year. That Brooklyn pick, unless LeBron says, I'm staying, flip that pick for a star, which I don't think he will because he's going to keep his options open, and that's been his MO for the whole time. That Brooklyn pick doesn't help them next year. So they turn Kyrie into Isaiah, who we have no idea when he's starting the year, and Jay Crowder, who it's one of the things that's hilarious when it's your own team to hear people talking about it, to players that you watch day in and day out, and then you hear people who obviously hadn't seen the team, and people are like, well, who's going to guard LeBron now that Jay Crowder's gone? It's like Jay Crowder couldn't guard LeBron. Jay Crowder got worse defensively last year. He was a B-, C+ defensively last year. He was not that good. I'm telling you, I watched the games. He really slipped. He's still a good help defender, not great, but his one-on-one stay in front of somebody defense against the best small forwards in the league was not good. And his 3-point shooting was as good as it's been last year. All the shots were wide open. I don't think he shot even 40%. So I think he's a 7th man. I like Jay Crowder, but in terms of who's going to stop LeBron and Durant and Paul George and all those guys next year, They need Jaylen Brown to step up. The guy was the 3rd pick in the draft. So I think that was a big part of the trade too. The fact that they hurt Cleveland. The team they have now is much better positioned offensively. It's worse defensively because more because of Avery Bradley losing him than anything. But they still have assets to move. And that's the part. This team is still a work in progress. They left a spot open. They need like a stretch 4 type, better Patrick Patterson, who wasn't available in free agency, but in February might be. They have a lot of assets. They have their own 1st round pick the next couple years. They have the Memphis pick. They have that great Lakers Sixers pick, which if it's 2 through 5, they get in the draft this year. And, you know, I think they're poised to make another move. And by the way, Anthony Davis, if that happens for whatever reason, they're ready. If New Orleans falls apart, if he decides he needs to go to a contender, whatever, they're ready. They're ready to move in with whatever it takes. And Kyrie is a big selling point for that. Zach Lowe wrote about that this week. It's the piece that leads to the next piece that is such an important part of these trades. Now it's like, hey, Anthony Davis, come here. We have Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. Come on, be the 3rd piece. We can win the title. Just harder to do, especially if you have Isaiah in a contract year when you have no idea what his contract's going to be worth. So it was a cold trade. It really was. It was cold. What they did to Isaiah, that was about as cold of a trade as you've seen, especially because he got hurt and then got hurt even worse because he kept playing because he's trying to be a great Celtic, and then they dumped him. So that part's rough, but it's a trade that makes a lot of sense. I cannot fathom how somebody would say they overpaid. That's crazy to me. Everyone who was bitching that they didn't trade the Brooklyn pick for Paul George, who was never available and never really on the table for them in a significant way, they were never told. I hate to sound like a Celtics defender, but this part's true. They were never told, all right, Paul George's move and make your best offer. They were under the assumption that once they signed Gordon Hayward, they would be able to make a move for Paul George. But no, they just traded him out of the conference to OKC. They screwed over the Lakers. They screwed over the Celtics, screwed over a couple other teams too. People did not have a chance to make their best offers. The Jimmy Butler thing is a more defensible, why didn't they make that trade for Jimmy Butler thing. Should they have given up the 2018 Brooklyn pick for him? Maybe. Would that have deterred Gordon Hayward from coming? I don't know. I think their attitude was get Gordon Hayward, then try to get Paul George, and they screwed up. And they played it wrong. And then now they salvaged it here with Kyrie, who, FYI, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you watched the finals last year, that was 2-on-2. It was Kyrie and LeBron versus Curry and Durant. And the supporting cast were there too. But that was 2-on-2. Golden State had a better supporting cast. Durant was slightly better than everybody else, and that's why Golden State won. But fascinating trade. We're going to take a quick break to talk about DraftKings. The NFL is returning next week. Oh, yeah. You know what that means? 1 week fantasy football on DraftKings. They are hosting a $100,000 contest that is totally free to enter. Only there's one big wrinkle this year. If you draft the perfect lineup, you can win $1 billion. Not to sound like Dr. Evil, but it's true. $1 billion. They have a lot of ways to play. Choose between public contests with big cash prizes or private contests where you compete against a group of friends, or my personal favorite, single entry contests where each person can only enter one lineup. They have beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill level as well. The best part about DraftKings, draft a new team each week without any commitment. Go to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Simmons. That's my name to play in DraftKings free Week 1 contest with $100,000 in total prizes. Remember, if you draft the perfect lineup, you can win $1 billion. That's promo code Simmons. Use it so they know that you love the BS podcast. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. For over 20 years, DirecTV has been the exclusive home for NFL Sunday Ticket, the only way to get every live game every Sunday. I remember getting DirecTV when I lived in Charlestown, Massachusetts, I think in 2000, just to get Sunday NFL Ticket. and being able to see all the games at once, and between fantasy and gambling, I was out of my mind. It was the best. Good news, NFL fans. DirecTV has expanded the service. If you live in an apartment or are an enrolled college student, now you can get NFL Sunday Ticket without a satellite. To see if you're eligible, go online to nflsundayticket.tv and stream every NFL Sunday Ticket game this season to follow your favorite team, no matter where you live. Nephew Kyle, you want me to buy this for you?
I already did it.
You did it already?
I did it a week ago.
Oh, I'll buy you some French fries instead. Use promo code RINGER at checkout to save 15%. Wow, that's a lot of money. Once again, that is nflsundayticket.tv, promo code RINGER. Watch all your favorite teams on NFL Sunday Ticket. The Ringer's Kevin O'Connor is on the line. He just went to the Kyrie trade press conference that Gordon Hayward also attended. They revealed their numbers. Kyrie's number 11, which worries me a little. There's kind of a checkered history with number 11. Evan Turner might have been the most successful number 11,
not a
other
Marcus
than
Banks fan?
Charlie Scott.
How about Marcus Banks?
No. My first favorite player on the Celtics was Charlie Scott in the mid-'70s. They won the 76 title with him. And I went to the game the next year when he broke his leg and was never the same. And ever since then Bob McAdoo wore it, a whole bunch of people. So I was a little worried about that. But what was the mood at that press conference?
Very, very positive. I would say most questions were positive, most responses were positive, and got a little deep too with Kyrie, starting off talking about life and meaning beyond basketball.
Yeah, I think with the way Kevin Durant in part one of the podcast that I did with him laid it out, I thought was the smartest thing I'd heard anybody say. I was actually jealous I didn't think of the point. He was just basically like, Kyrie's like me. He just wants to play basketball. He's been in a circus for the last 3 years. He didn't want to go through the drama of, is LeBron staying or not? What's LeBron? Who's getting traded? He just didn't want to do it. He wanted a stable situation. All the indications that I've gotten, and all the sources that I've talked to, is that once Kyrie knew Boston was on the table, that's where he wanted to go. I've heard that Phoenix actually would have put Josh Jackson on the table. They'll deny it to the death now, but Bledsoe and Josh Jackson for Kyrie, Phoenix would have done. But Kyrie, you're going to make a trade like that. You want to know that the guy's going to stay there long term. And Kyrie wouldn't say that to Phoenix or Denver. And that's why and Milwaukee is another one. I don't think he wanted to play for those teams. Once he knew Boston was in play, that's where he wanted to go. What have you heard on that?
Well, I do think Phoenix definitely would have put Josh Jackson on the block eventually for that trade. But I think with Kyrie, you're probably right about the connection with the Celtics. And I think perhaps his dad, playing at BU and his dad trying out for the Celtics had a little bit of do with that. After the press conference, there was a moment where Kyrie kind of went straight over to his dad and they embraced for, and chatted for a little bit and gave him his jersey. And they were just kind of laughing about it, like Irving on the back of the jersey with the number 11 that his dad wore at BU. Yeah. So I think that might have had a little bit to do with it, but I think a lot of it had to do with Brad Stevens, who is probably a better NBA coach combined than the 4 coaches Kyrie Irving had in Cleveland. Byron Scott, Mike Brown, David Blatt, and Ty Lue. I think Ty Lue can be a good coach, but he's a young coach right now, and it remains to be seen on what level he is. So in that sense, I think for Kyrie, a lot of it had to do with Brad, and a lot of it had to do with history too, and his ability to build his legacy in Boston.
Yeah, and I do think that was that's the biggest thing that's happened the last 3 years with the Celtics is Stevens, the reputation he has, and then the organization itself. I asked KD about this on the podcast last week. It's one of the biggest things that's changed in his generation is that these guys, instead of in the old days, it was just like, I want to play in a big city. They didn't even think about the owner. They didn't think about the coach. And now you see, I think they're much more educated about what's going on in the league, maybe from being online more, from being better read, being on Twitter, just seeing what the vibes of different fan bases are like. And the Celtics are a great example. Like, this is a team that could not lure free agents up until 5 years ago. It was really hard. Even pulling off the KG trade and convincing him to come to Boston was a big deal. Now it's like these guys know Brad Stevens is a great coach. That's a team that spends money. The fans are good. And it was a big advantage for them with Kyrie. I do think he wanted to be a part of it. I heard he met with Stevens this week and like his head was spinning because, and this is, you know, I keep reading about the Celtics overpaid too much. I talked about this earlier. Kyrie, he's a flawed superstar, all that stuff. KOC, explain what Kyrie could be in the Brad Stevens offense.
So I would say for Kyrie Irving, like first let me preface my point with like, I feel like a lot of analysis in general, not necessarily with Kyrie, but in general, looks backwards rather than projecting forwards. And for Kyrie, there's been a lot of like what he was in Cleveland. There's a lot of focus on what he was the first 3 years of his career in Cleveland before LeBron got there. And to me, that's kind of irrelevant at that point. If you look at the production of young point guards across the league in this entire century, most guys aren't good earlier in their career. Chris Paul is one of the few exceptions who could actually lead his team to the playoffs. So with Kyrie, the guy he's kind of developed into with LeBron James on the court is really that score first point guard. However, with that said, I would say there is more upside for him to develop more playmaking tendencies as well as maintaining his efficiency as a scorer, because there were situations when LeBron James was off the floor where Kyrie maintained his scoring efficiency and had higher scoring volume. I forget the number exactly. It was something like 32 points per game per 36 minutes with super efficiency. So with Kyrie, I think we're going to see him plugged into a new situation. Looking forward, we're looking at what Isaiah Thomas was in Boston. We're going to see Kyrie Irving use more off ball like Isaiah was, maybe used off screens a little bit. I'm going to get him, I think, like Brad Stevens likes to call it, a live dribble, where the player gives it up and then gets it right back and they're going towards the rim or they're creating against the rotating defense. So you're going to see Kyrie in different situations that you didn't see him in Cleveland. So I think the way his game will evolve will be within the context of what we saw from Isaiah Thomas the last couple of years in Boston. So in that sense, some of the production that he's had in the past, yes, good and bad you can look at, but you also need to think about him within his new situation. And that goes for any player that changes situations across the league, because the way a coach runs their system and the way the things they ask of a player can drastically affect their performance and their production and their development. Kyrie's only 25.
Obviously, I agree. And this was, I think, the big appeal for trading for Kyrie, and the argument I was making the last 6 weeks is I don't know if he's been in the best possible situation for him yet, which is a crazy thing to say because he played with somebody that I think is the third best player of all time right now. The Cavs offensively were really good last year. They were spectacular at times, and the efficiency numbers were there. And when they did the whole space the floor, everybody go one-on-one, somebody come over, set a pick thing, it worked. But at the same time, there's another level that he can go offensively. It was a very primitive but effective offense they were running. It was a primitive modern offense, if that makes sense, where you knew what they were going to do every time, but their players were so skilled that it didn't matter. And I think in this offense, as you said, just putting him in the way the Celtics use Isaiah is going to be effective. The biggest thing for me, you pointed this out in one of your pieces, he didn't shoot enough threes in Cleveland. The guy's a really good 3-point shooter and should be shooting 8 to 9 threes a game. I think he only shot like 3.5 during the season last year, or averaged that. Don't you think he shoots 8 for the Celtics now? He's going to be jacking them up, right?
Yeah, I would think his volume, especially shooting off the catch, will be higher. The stat I believe I have. Okay, Irving has shot 44.5% on spot up threes since 2014. So during the LeBron era, 44.5% on spot up threes. That's a ridiculous number.
Yep.
And he's going to get
That's
a lot
great.
more of those playing off ball with the Celtics.
Do you think that part of this, like, let's say Isaiah was healthy and they knew they were getting one great healthy year from Isaiah, what do you think this trade would have been? Because the Brooklyn pick's not on the table at that point, as I discussed earlier. I think it's Isaiah, Crowder, maybe the Memphis pick. Would they have even given up that much? What do you think is the max they would have given up with a healthy Isaiah?
I think it's very possible that the Nets pick still would have been there Isaiah would have been out and Isaiah maybe could have been flipped somewhere else, maybe you'd expand on the trade and make it a three-way, because I still think Cleveland needed and wanted that Nets pick. I don't think a deal would get done otherwise, because they were thinking long-term with this trade. There was a report today, I believe, from Jason Lloyd from The Athletic that Isaiah could be out until February. So in that sense, Cleveland's not necessarily thinking about the regular season. Sure, they do want to push and make a playoff run, but the deal was made for Jay Crowder with 3 years left, only $21 million total, and then the Nets pick. That's why the deal was made. And for Isaiah, I think he was just really the bonus in this deal. That's what sources have told me. I think logically it makes sense based off the injury that he has. So I think for Cleveland, they would need that Nets pick, Bill. And regardless, that would have to be there. So the deal would have been structured a little bit differently.
Yeah, so maybe, I think you're right. Maybe they flip Isaiah to a third party. The problem is Isaiah's not passing any physical. And I think that was one of the reasons the Brooklyn picks in this trade in the first place, because they said to them, Isaiah's hurt. Like we don't know when he's coming back.
It's sad, really.
The upside of, yeah, it is sad, especially because he was giving his heart and soul to help the team try to win last year. You talked about people looking forward, not backward. It's bizarre to me that people think Kyrie is a finished product. Like, we should know better at this point, especially with somebody who's 25, and especially with somebody who has been in a lot of different basketball situations without any real stability yet. I keep hearing Kyrie's not a franchise guy. Well, in your opinion, who is a franchise guy? I think people talk about, well, that guy, he can't lead a franchise to the title if he's your best player. It's like, well, I don't really think anybody can. Like, I think LeBron is a franchise guy and Durant, but other than that, do you feel, and maybe Curry, because Curry did it as the best player on a team before Durant did there. How many guys do you think can actually lead a team to 50 plus wins as the quote unquote best guy with not a lot of great pieces around? Harden's there. Kawhi, anybody else? You can't even say Westbrook. They only won 45 games last year.
There's really, really not many. Might not even fill up one hand when you're counting. There's not many. I think, you're kind of referencing towards that, some of the quotes from the NBA execs in Howard Beck's article yesterday, which I thought was great. Great perspective on Kyrie. And two of the guys mentioned in there, Paul George and Jimmy Butler. Let's think about what they were during their age 24 season. Jimmy Butler that year averaged 13 points per game. He had yet to really kind of explode and have his coming out party like he did in 2014-15 season. Paul George, he was already emerging as a superstar, but he was coming off that major leg injury. There was a lot of uncertainty regarding his future and how he would bounce back from that. And granted, he's better now than he was before the injury. So that's a good thing. But the point is at age 24, which Kyrie just finished his age 24 season last year, these guys got better. Both Paul George and Jimmy Butler. And Kyrie Irving can too. He just turned 25 in March. So that's really the fascinating thing. I think a lot of it, with Kyrie in particular and other guys that really excel early in their careers, is that we're so oversaturated with seeing them. I mean, Kyrie's already been to 3 NBA finals. He's already played in the Olympics, Team USA, second highest selling shoe. There's so much Kyrie out there that it feels like we've known him for years, because we have, but he's still only 25 years old, and there's still room for growth in a new situation. So that's the fascinating aspect to me when it comes to, I think, really the way a lot of the players are perceived, because so much of what we assume is just the case. I mean, with who they are, these guys aren't necessarily done getting better. Even when you're 26, 27, Isaiah wasn't the same guy he was a couple years ago. He's improved as well. So I think with these players, you do need to project forward within the context they're going into, and that can be really hard to do. I think, and it's hard for NBA people. It's hard for us from the outside. But I think ruling out possible development from Kyrie, or even Jay Crowder going to Cleveland, or even Isaiah if he manages to stay healthy, we're underselling how these guys progress and how hard they work off the court, and the opportunities that they're given.
And I think 25, 26, 27 is when somebody becomes the player. Those are usually the peak years. You look at anybody, like Dirk won the MVP in 2006. I'm going to say he was 26, 27 in that range. Hayward just had his best season, right? He was 27. It usually seems like right around 27 is when you are who you are. Kyrie's not there yet. I couldn't believe, I really like the Howard Beck article. I tweeted about it yesterday, and I should have been more clear. Like, I just couldn't believe some of the quotes from the executives in there. I like the way he laid out the piece. I thought it was smart, but the idea that I think there were an exact quote in there was like, Paul George and Jimmy Butler are significantly better than Kyrie or whatever he said. I got to be honest. I would rather have Kyrie than Paul George or Jimmy Butler. And maybe I'm in the minority on that, but I'm just looking at the way the league operates these days. It's offense, offense, offense. The best offense wins the title now. And when I'm in the finals, I need to have two guys who can get a shot and score whenever they want when the defense gets really good, or I'm not winning the title. I already know Kyrie is one of those guys. Now it's up to the Celtics to figure out, is the team good enough with what they have right now, which the answer is obviously no. It's good enough to contend. I don't think it's good enough to beat the Warriors. But now they're one piece away from really potentially being the Warriors, whether that's Anthony Davis or whether that's just adding one more awesome piece, and just by sheer force of the amount of weapons you have, maybe that's the way to do it. But you're not going to do it unless you have somebody like Kyrie. And to me, that's why this trade wasn't a risk. It was a risk to keep Isaiah and pay him $30 million a year. It was a risk to keep your fingers crossed that the Brooklyn pick was going to be in the top 4 again. Kyrie's not a risk. He just played in 3 straight finals. The guy could not be guarded by the Warriors. I don't see any risk in that. If you had to rank, who would you rather have on your team the next 3 years? Kyrie, Butler, George. How would you rank them, just out of curiosity?
Probably Kyrie, George, Butler. And I would say that the primary reason for Kyrie over George is the proof of the playoff production that we've seen Kyrie at the highest level against elite defenders, against an elite team in the Warriors. That's what would give him the edge for me over Paul George. But George is a tremendous player and obviously a far, far, far superior defender. But I think Kyrie, his offensive production, at the highest levels in the playoffs would give him a slight edge. And Jimmy Butler, I'd rank him last simply because of in the half court. I'm not sure he's really quite as efficient as you would like in playoff situations, but obviously a terrific player. Couldn't go wrong with any of those 3 guys.
By the way, I'm not sure about Paul George either, because I'm not sure how good offensively he is. I thought he took a step back last year. Even when you look back at those Indiana-Miami series when he was terrific as a two-way player, it's not like he was ever this lights-out offensive force. He's solid. I think if he's your second best guy, you have a chance to contend. But if you're talking about Westbrook and Paul George in the Western Finals going toe-to-toe with Durant and Curry, those guys just don't have the same firepower. And I don't think Paul George is on that level, and the stats back it up. As a half-court player, he's just not that good, and I kind of think he is who he is at this point, don't you? I think the value to him is the two-way player part of it.
Well, I think with Paul George, I talked to an NBA executive, maybe it was in January or February, about George, and I was like, why does this guy, as talented as he is, not score 28 points per game? I mean, he's a terrific scorer. And the main reason why is, to your point, he doesn't get to the rim. He doesn't draw a lot of fouls. And that's one of the primary ingredients it takes to be an efficient high-volume scorer, to be able to score against a set defense, is the ability to get to the rim and draw fouls. And that's where George falls short, and it does kind of put him a peg below a lot of those other superstars. But with that said, he's absolutely, he could be one of your stars on your team. But I'm not sure he is necessarily the guy.
No, I agree with you. And I think I look at Kyrie as Curry to me is the model, and they're completely different players. But the Warriors, I look at the 67 win team, the team that won the first title that they won, the 2 years before Durant got there, and that team was built around a really good defensive identity and Steph and Klay shooting threes, but really Steph and the spacing that he created for everybody, and just his unparalleled ability to score in any situation and get any shot he wanted. He was never a giant playmaker. I don't think, did he ever get over 6 assists a game? Probably not. He's kind of the modern version of a point guard. He's not the Chris Paul version of the point guard. And I think that's how the Celtics envision Kyrie, as somebody who is just a transcendent scorer and somebody who can potentially be so good in the right offense that it will open up everything for everybody else. That would be the best case scenario for this trade. I see, I see the cases that will he play hard for 100 games in a row? Is he ready to be the man? Is he ready to carry, the team's tired, 2 guys are hurt. It's the fifth road game in an 8-day road trip. Is he ready to just be like, guys, I got you tonight. I'm going to score 48. I don't know if he's that guy, but you know what? That's part of the risk of this trade. The Celtics think he can be, and it's up to him whether he can prove it. I do think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think he knows, what people are saying. I think all these guys do. And the consensus out there is this is risky. He's a flawed superstar. He's not somebody who can carry his own team. I think that's a good thing for the Celtics that stuff's out there, don't you?
For sure. And I think, bringing up Curry is interesting because he's another one of those guys. Age 24, nobody could have expected him to be the guy he is today. I think Curry, to be fair, he has averaged over 6 assists 5 years in a row, 6.9, 8.5, 7.7, 6.7, 6.6. But with that said, he's not a...
What did he average in the 2015 year, though? I'm going to look it up now.
That was 6.7. That was the year they won the finals, 7.7. The year they lost, 6.7, and then last year was 6.6.
So do we think Kyrie could get to? Do we think he can get to 7 assists?
Sure, of course. I think he absolutely can. He wasn't the point guard in Cleveland. I remember for an article I wrote maybe a couple months ago, might have even been the pre-finals preview that I wrote about. Chris Ryan, editor at The Ringer, said to me, he's like, in a way, LeBron is kind of the point guard and Kyrie is really the forward in their offense. Because LeBron was the primary playmaker and Kyrie wasn't. So the opportunity hasn't been there. And, one of the criticisms of Kyrie is, I think, fairly accurate. That he's maybe not a good playmaker anyway. He might just max out as an above average playmaker. But the thing is considering his scoring potency, I think that's all right. Kyrie does have weaknesses on the defensive end of the floor. Some of the backdoor cuts he allows, just the pure laziness is really inexcusable that we've seen from him in the playoffs the past couple of years. David Griffin has alluded to it before at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, how when Kyrie needs to defend to reach his potential. Again, it always comes back to new situation, new environment. Cleveland's poor defense was a systematic issue. Just in general, it was really something that plagued their entire team. So maybe Kyrie will continue to be a problem defensively in Boston. That is an absolute possibility where he becomes a major weakness on that end. All the talk about Isaiah Thomas's weak defense is fair. It also applies to Kyrie, but it's also possible in a new system that he starts defending just like he did towards the end of the finals in 2015. It's a variable and a risk, but I think it's something that can't be overlooked.
I apologize to Steph Curry. I was remembering his playoff per game stat. He was 6.4 assists in the playoffs, 5.2, and 6.2 the last 3 years. Or 6.4, 5.2, 6.7 the last 3 years. But in the regular season, his assists were higher than I remember. 8.5 in 2014 is legit. But I thought Zach made a great point in his piece that he wrote this week, that the one pass Kyrie doesn't have yet that he has to add is that drives, whip it across the court into the corner pass.
Yeah. Yep.
Which, don't you think Stevens just teaches them how to do that in 2 weeks? I don't feel like that's a hard pass to learn. Do you?
I think so much of passing is instinctual, though. I think just having that feel and being able to see and not only just being able to see it, but accurately deliver the pass. You can see the guy in the corner, but you need to be able to deliver a bullet for him to get the shot off cleanly. Otherwise, you're putting him in a tough spot.
So I should quit on my dream of Kyrie being able to make that pass, you're telling me?
Hey, look, it could happen. Again, he's only 25.
Now my feelings are hurt.
I think this season, I think that would be a little bit much to ask. Expecting Kyrie to transform into a terrific playmaker, even for Isaiah Thomas, from the player the Celtics first got to the guy that they've traded to Cleveland. He's gotten better as a passer as well. I think progress will happen. It's just a matter of what level he reaches.
Kyrie, if you're listening, KOC doesn't think you can make that pass. Do you think the Celtics gave up too much?
No. I think it's a good deal for both teams. I wrote about that last week. I think for both teams makes perfect sense. For the Celtics, they get their potential cornerstone talent that makes them a championship contender, only 25 years old. And for the Cleveland Cavaliers, they get, granted, the Nets pick could end up seventh best odds. That could be all it takes to get that one of those top 3 picks. And I think that's better than maybe anything else that was on the table. I think Jay Crowder's contract allows them to stay competitive this year. Also, once LeBron leaves, still can have another good quality player alongside their core. Zizic I still like as a prospect, and Isaiah, I mean, it remains to be seen how healthy he'll be this season, but no denying his upside. So for Cleveland, tremendous upside with this deal, and for Boston, we've already talked about Kyrie and the upside he presents.
Last question. Which team are you the maddest at for screwing up and not getting Kyrie? Because my list is about 5 deep.
I would say there's mixed reports with Milwaukee. Zach Lowe reported earlier this week or last week that they didn't put a first-round pick on the table. Gambo, Phoenix Suns radio personality, he said last month that they did have the first-round pick on the table. I would say if I'm Milwaukee, I would have been putting Jabari Parker out there too. If Kyrie were willing to resign. Again, that's the big variable. If he were willing to resign, I'd be going all in if I were Milwaukee. He would be the type of piece you're missing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Milwaukee, Denver, and Phoenix had the same problem. I think they went halfway down the road, and Kyrie and his side were probably like, don't bother. We won't resign there if you trade for him. I think once the Boston blood was in the water, that's what they wanted. But I will say, I think the Knicks is the team I'm the maddest at. I think the Knicks could have made this trade happen.
Porzingis?
If they had given up Frankie Nicotine and Carmelo and their 2018 first, I find it hard to believe Cleveland wouldn't have done that.
Would Carmelo have waived his no trade though? Would he want to go to Cleveland?
Didn't he already waive it for the Cavs?
There was reports that he only wants to go to Houston now though. So
well, he's not going to Houston. I hate to break it to Carmelo, but he's not going there. They don't have the person to give back for him.
So stuck in New York for another year then.
I said at the time, and I believe it now. If the Knicks, all they had left after they made trades were Kyrie and Porzingis, great. Let's go to war. That's my team. It was a rare chance for them to get somebody that they probably shouldn't have been able to get, and that's how I feel about a lot of these teams. Kyrie shouldn't have been available. The best trades that happen are usually for the team that gets the guy are usually when the guy probably shouldn't have been available.
Like KG, James Harden going to Houston.
James Harden. It's when circumstance makes the guy available and not because it's a smart trade. James Harden's another great example. Chris Paul, for what the Clippers actually gave up for Chris Paul. Very rarely is a blue chipper on the table. And I'm just surprised. I'm with you. Like if Milwaukee could have gotten him for Brogdon, Middleton, and Parker, done. Call it in. I got Giannis and Kyrie, unless he tipped him off and said he wasn't going to resign there. And, I don't know if I would have blamed him on that one either. Oh. I think to go to the Celtics, to play with Horford, to play with Hayward, to be with Brad Stevens, to be in the situation with Brown and Tatum and more lottery picks coming. It was the most appealing situation. They're already a contender, and he gets to play Cleveland in the conference finals next year. So, KOC, this was a pleasure as always. Are you going on Ringer NBA show next week?
I believe either next week or the week after we'll be back. One of those Tuesdays, but I'm excited to talk with Chris Vernon again. I miss him.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Bill. Have a good day.
One more break to talk about our friends at Squarespace. They make it easy to build beautiful websites, whether you're planning to start a business, change careers, or launch a creative project. Now that 2017 is rolling, you should absolutely be tackling your next move with Squarespace, widely used by all kinds of people and businesses. They give you the ability to create an online platform with which you can make your latest goals into a reality. You can even get a unique domain, which strengthens your brand and makes it easier for visitors to find you. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or an online store, it's all included in your Squarespace website. Arrange your content and features or add them with the click of a mouse. Nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And guess what? Squarespace's award-winning 24/7 customer support will help you no matter how hard or easy your problem may be. Start a free trial today at squarespace.com. Use offer code BS to get 10% off your first purchase plus a free domain. Again, that's squarespace.com. Offer code BS. All right, deputy editor of The Ringer, Mallory Rubin is here, aka the mother of dragons. This is your time of year. Football, baseball playoffs.
All of it.
Thrones just ended.
It did.
We'll save Thrones for the tail end. So if people didn't see it yet, we'll circle back. College football, I don't really care.
Yes.
Why should I care this year?
Well, if you don't care in general about college football, this is a hard year to get you to care because, as Zach Cram wrote about for The Ringer today, the quote-unquote Cinderellas this year are teams like Notre Dame and Miami and Georgia. The Blue Bloods. It's the Blue Bloods. Alabama, Florida State are playing in the showcase game of opening weekend. It's 1 versus 3. They're basically, along with Ohio State, favorites for the national championship game. USC is ranked in the top 5. We're talking about the classic traditional powers. Even Texas is exciting again because of Tom Herman taking over as coach. So
it's a throwback year.
It's a classic year. It feels like it might be. It's hard to identify too many true sleepers who look like they could disrupt the order. I think some people are high on BYU. Some people out there think that a team maybe South Florida could make a run, but it's hard to crack the playoff if you don't have the schedule. And the teams that look the best this year and that play in the toughest conferences happen to be the Alabamas and Florida States of the world.
What does Taylor Swift's "Look What Made You Do" song have to do with any of this? Because ESPN was all of a sudden blasting it with their college football.
That was fast.
Yeah, that was fast. And
that happened quickly.
Maybe the wrong choice of a song because it was getting lame-basted.
Yeah, that was instant backlash and also instant heavy leaning in on the promotion side. Tough choice. I guess young people like pop music, though. That's, I guess, the idea. I'm 90 years old, so I listen to Bob Dylan, as you know. It's give me some CCR on my college football promos.
Old school, the 70s.
And then I'm there.
Who are the 3 most exciting college football players I should care about this year?
Wow.
Other than Sam Darnold of USC, who everybody...
Well, he's definitely one of the 3.
He's in the 3. I know about him.
He's incredible to watch.
It's fun when they're good.
Yeah, I think... Certainly, living in LA, it's interesting when UCLA and USC feel relevant, but just in general, college football is a more interesing proposition.
He stole the Chosen Rosen's corner.
Tough stretch for Chosen Rosen. I think he bounces back this year in a big way. I do. Just get ready for it ahead of the draft. Rosen is an elite NFL prospect. I still believe that for sure. Darnold is really, really, really good. But I think it's important that people, and by people specifically, I mean Jets fans, remember that he has not even played 1 full college football season. He did not win the starting job out of camp last year. He took over a few games into the season. They were basically unbeatable after that point. He was incredible, but he has very, very little experience. So it feels like a lot of hype really quickly to say, you're going to lead USC back to the promised land. You're going to be the number 1 pick. He also could still go back to school. He redshirted. He's not out of eligibility.
That'd be a smart move if the Jets got the first pick.
In a vacuum, yes, though there is a very real history of USC quarterbacks who were presumptive number 1 picks deciding
Mark
to
Sanchez,
go back, and then it backfired. I mean, Leinart, Barkley, they went back and plummeted. So
does OJ play into this at all? He's free now.
Oh, God.
What happens if OJ just shows up at a game?
Hadn't considered the OJ wrinkle. I think
How can you not?
He's going to be spending his time in Florida,
just more
right?
twisted than you.
Not spending his time in
So
Florida.
Sam Darnold's one. Who are the other 2?
He's one. Basically, anybody on Alabama is worth watching.
Okay.
I am really hoping for a big bounce back year from Calvin Ridley, Alabama receiver. He had an incredible freshman season. And
Great name.
Incredible. He regressed in sort of puzzling fashion last year. It was the Jalen Hurts offense was a bit of a rocky ride, obviously. You know what? I'm going to switch my Alabama pick right here. Spur of the moment pivot. Kiffin's gone. Who knows what the offense will look like? OJ Howard's gone. Let's get back to the ground and pound. Bo Scarborough. Bo Scarborough. Now, Alabama has literally a handful of 5-star running back recruits, any of whom would start and contend for the Heisman on basically any team in the country. Scarborough is the one who you might recall seeing in a picture or on your TV screen who literally looks like a starting NFL defensive end.
Yeah.
Like he's that big. He's got biceps that are
Even
the
I
size of a
remember him.
normal person's thigh.
Yeah.
And he struggled to stay healthy. He suffered a leg injury in the championship game. If he can stay healthy, he can have a better season than Derrick Henry had there. He's that gifted. I do also think Ridley will bounce back and be extremely effective.
Two great names. Both
good
Scarborough
stuff.
and Calvin Ridley. It's
Yeah.
like we would make those up in the Alabama sports movie.
I'm going to give you one that is a recency bias pick
Yeah.
and not actually what I believe is a top 3 pick, but I'm doing this both for you
Yeah.
and for Amanda Dobbins.
Okay.
J.K. Dobbins, Ohio State
J.K. Dobbins.
freshman running back, had a huge debut last night. Ohio State actually already opened the season. They were losing to Indiana for an alarming amount of time and then came back and won big. And Dobbins looked electric, like that kind
Ooh.
of fun spark plug. And JT Barrett is another person who is eligible for this kind of conversation. I mean, he's a Heisman front runner, their quarterback. People were surprised that he went back to school. So that offense is going to be extremely potent. And Ohio State is a genuine national championship contender, so everyone on that team is fun. But Dobbins looks like he could be really fun. And he was also, he was doing that thing where late in the game, garbage time touchdowns were like clearly there for the taking. And he's like, scooting up next to the coaches to try to get in, try to get some points.
He probably took
pad those
himself in
stats.
DraftKings.
I love it. I love it.
All right. That's a good preview. That was enough for me.
Watch Alabama,
Baseball.
Florida State. Just treat yourself to a few
gonna
moments of
watch it.
Alabama,
It's
Florida
Saturday,
State.
right?
That could be, yes, Saturday. It's the night game, so 5-ish out here. That could be a preview of the.
I'm going to be at a
of the
soccer
championship
tournament
game.
with my daughter. Maybe she'll be asleep from being tired from the 2 games, and I can put the game on. Baseball, September 1st.
Yeah.
The Angels are making trades. The Angels are in it. Mike Trout might be in a playoff series.
I'm very unhappy about this as an Oriole fan, obviously, because the
Well,
Angels.
you're lingering too.
The Angels are one of the few teams that are still ahead of the Orioles, so that was a bummer yesterday. But as a baseball fan, it is exciting to see the Angels finally make the decision to try to build a team around Trout. That was a little strange that right after news broke that they had traded for Upton, news broke that Maben was going to the Astros because he gives them like the speed element that
Right.
certainly Justin Upton does not. But it was an interesting day to see what the Angels and the Astros were doing because the Astros were the team that got Maven.
Yeah,
so,
let's talk about the Astros though, because
Verlander.
well, so I had their top 3 starters on my League of Dorks fantasy team, which is going to finish second, mainly for a variety of reasons, but mainly because these 3 starters, McHugh,
Yeah.
Keuchel, McCullers.
Who I traded you.
I think
Jeff
I might have gotten
traded you
31
McCullers.
starts total of these guys, but they have not been good. We
Yeah.
wrote about, Zach Mack wrote about the Verlander trade last night, and I didn't even realize the Astros were 20-24 in their last 44 games.
That was shocking. And
Because I knew the Red Sox were climbing closer and closer, but I didn't know they were under 500 for 1/4 of the season. It's
yeah,
not
and
a
that
good
little
sign.
the chart that Cram had in there about the pitching statistics for the starting rotations of the 6 division leaders. I mean, the Astros were dead last by a lot. Thing is, like, Keuchel and McCullers are really, really good when they're healthy. The issue is, can they stay healthy? I mean, McCullers has been on the DL multiple times this year.
Yeah,
and
so
Keuchel,
he's young and had the pitch count.
Totally,
I mean, what
and-
was he heading toward, like 180 innings? That's what I
yeah.
wish I had researched that when I traded for him. I should have known. The 23-year-old dude. They can never go 200
You don't
plus.
get to complain about that trade because Manny Machado
I know,
has
you
been
did give me
literally the
Machado.
best player in baseball since we made that deal. So annoying. God damn it.
Whoa.
But
is this kind of as a free agent run for him now?
oh yeah, of course.
Even though he's a
every
year
homer,
away, he's been the best player in baseball.
every homer, every web gem at third. It's just another couple mil, you know?
So you think Verlander's number 1 starter? Like opening playoff series, is he start game 1 for them?
I think it depends on how Keuchel finishes the season. If
Well,
Keuchel
I can tell
comes
you right
back,
now, he's been
I know,
shitty
he's been bad.
with a
He's been
capital
bad.
S.
But he was excellent the first few months of the season, and
then
we're
he got
not
hurt.
very far removed from him winning the Cy Young. So if he can get healthy and he finishes strong, I think probably the start still goes to him. But yeah, Verlander's either
That's a
game 1 or
mistake.
game 2 for
I
sure.
would start Verlander. I actually have Verlander on my team too.
Yeah.
And we traded for him because he had started to get better, and he's been good for 2 months now.
He's been really good.
I'm disappointed the Red Sox didn't get them.
Are you ready to concede that he should have won the Cy Young over Rick Porcello, who is not a real baseball player?
He was great last year.
Was he?
I'll tell you this, though. I'd rather have Verlander starting in the playoffs game 2 versus old Rick.
The thing that I like about the trade is it's just the latest confirmation that this basically tanking in baseball approach works. Like the Astros are able to make a deal like that at the August trade deadline, which is very uncommon.
Why didn't
they're willing to
block it?
I don't know.
Just block it. Throw a block in.
To be willing to give up 3, like, not blue chip, totally elite prospects, but good prospects.
One of them was their third best guy.
Yeah. And people are really high on Dallas Cameron, too. So they gave up some decent talent, but they can afford to because their farm system still, even after the moves they've made in recent seasons, is so stacked. Teams like the Astros and the Cubs have been able to make the deals they've needed to make. I mean, that's why during the July deadline, when the Dodgers came in and got Darvish, everybody's reaction was, why didn't the Astros do this? They had the pieces to do it. It was never a question of if they had the chips. It was just when they were going to be willing to move them. So
I'd rather how it played out for them. I think it was a better outcome because I think they would have had to give up much more for Darvish. And I think Verlander's going to be good in the playoffs.
The Dodgers didn't have to give up that much for Darvish.
I like that hitter they gave up. Did you see the clips of him?
Yeah. Bauman's high on him, too. Yeah.
That guy's a stud.
Yeah.
What's his name?
True.
I'm blanking. I watched all the clips because we're probably gonna have the first pick in the League of Dorks.
Oh, you're already
minor league
scouting
draft.
for the
So I'm
minor
already
league
scouting,
draft?
and I scouted that guy. I
God.
was like, look at this swing.
Wow.
He hit a farewell homer for the Dodgers farm team before he left.
Who on the Red Sox would you have been willing to say goodbye to?
Pomeranz.
Nobody wants Pomeranz. Nobody wants Pomeranz.
I give them Pomeranz and some prospects, and we're good.
Which
Take
prospects?
Pomeranz back.
Which prospect?
Like our 4th best prospect. Whatever.
Full rebuild in Detroit.
Pomeranz is he's a cheap salary guy who can throw a pretty nice looking 6 innings unless you actually watched every pitch. Boy, is he frustrating. I can't wait to be punching a wall when I'm watching him in a playoff. He might not get into the 5th inning in a playoff game. But everybody's going to take 8 pitches per at bat.
But that's fine. Like, you don't need to get beyond the 5th inning.
Have you seen our bullpen?
Into it. For a manager to succeed in the baseball playoffs now, you just have to be willing to creatively use your bullpen and do whatever it takes.
I don't know about
Trade
this.
for more relievers then,
Addison Reed
Go back in time.
Addison Reed was fine on paper.
I like Addison Reed.
He makes me nervous.
I like him.
He just makes me nervous.
I mean,
is
granted,
is there a Fangraph stat for a guy for how nervous a pitcher makes you? Because he's up there.
It's probably directly correlated to how that pitcher fares in high leverage situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's had some tough playoff moments for sure, as Mets fans can attest. But
I thought that was a great trade for the Astros.
Yeah, they had
$20
to
million
do it.
next year, $20 million the year after, and it gets triggered for 2020 if he's in top 5 of the Cy Young, and if he is, you'd want to pay him $20 million anyway.
It's a lot of money for an older player who 2 years ago everybody thought was done, but it's just not a lot of money in the grand scheme of what baseball contracts go for now. And if you're chasing a title this year, it just doesn't matter. So I like it too. I mean, they really, after the July deadline, they felt like if not the biggest, among the biggest, losers, because they just had a clear opportunity to get an ace or an ace light and
he's
make
ace
a run.
light. Yeah.
The thing is, since then, like at that point, I think pretty much everybody would have said, certainly you would have said, oh, the Astros are winning the AL pennant. The Red Sox are just not as good. But since the Red Sox and the Indians look as good or better than the Astros in the last month, so you had to make a move. You just had to.
The Indians' top 3 got going.
Yeah.
Even though Salazar and Carrasco got shelled once last month, but in general, they look like they're kind of. Kluver's been going the whole year, but the other 2 got going.
Kluver's incredible. And that pan. I mean, obviously, how healthy Andrew Miller is in the playoffs is a big thing for them. But
my dad's already given up on us beating Tito in round 1 if it plays out to that.
Yeah, that's I don't know.
The problem with this Red Sox team, and I've been watching them. I really enjoy watching them, and I like the guys on the team.
They're a fun team.
There's some holes, man. Betts has been in a slump since July 4th. Like, Betts has been bad since July 4th. He's still a good defensive right fielder. Bogarts is like, if there's a guy, like yesterday, he's 3rd and 1st, you just know the DP's coming.
Right.
And you just go down the lineup. It's like, who's going to get a hit? Like Nunez, I have more faith in than anybody in my lineup.
Unstoppable.
Which is not, I don't know. I just,
not
Kimbrel's
certainly
obviously good, but
not as much home run power this year in that lineup as you'd want in a season that has been defined by 3 true outcomes. Like the players who have defined the season and the teams that have defined the season mostly, have a ton of pop. But the other thing they have is elite pitching. And like, would you want literally anyone in baseball other than Chris Sale right now?
So that's the case for the Red Sox is if Sale is just unbelievable in the playoffs.
He can have
it's conceivable.
He can have the postseason that Bumgarner had.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
like
conceivable.
you believe that fully, that he can give you 7, 8, maybe 9 innings, 12 strikeouts, 1 run if the other team is lucky, and he's going to give you more than 1 start in a series, and that he'd also come out of the pen late if he needed to. Like, it's just not hard to envision some kind of Herculean showing from him because he's been unstoppable.
7 great innings, 5 or 6 times in a row.
Absolutely.
It's conceivable.
If you're a fan of any other AL team, it's terrifying.
Here's what I think they need to do. Ortiz, just a 60-day hitting coach contract, assistant hitting coach. Put a uniform on him, get him in the dugout. He obviously had magical powers with these dudes. Like Hanley is a completely different guy this year. Mookie Betts, I don't know what happened.
Is magical powers a specific strain of PED or is it?
Stop it. That's not funny. Say you're joking.
It made Kyle laugh.
Kyle, don't laugh at that. No, it's just high fives. It's the arm around the shoulder. Yeah. It's the come on, guys, you'll get him next time.
Yep, arm around the shoulder with the needle in the hand. I'm just kidding, Red Sox fans.
I don't like
just
any
kidding,
of these
guys.
jokes. I just don't like them.
I don't want your dad to be mad at me, so I'll state for the record.
I'll tell you, my dad doesn't like
joking.
those jokes.
All in good fun.
AL pennant odds.
Oh, God.
Indians plus 225. Astros plus 250.
Okay.
Red Sox plus 320, which I think is insane. Yankees 7-1. Angels 25-1. Possible sleeper here. The Twins of Minnesota.
Yeah.
25-1. Byron Buxton.
Yeah.
Twins fans.
Your guy.
Send me flowers. Send me
Your
candy.
guy.
His career couldn't take off until I traded him. I traded him. His career took off. I said it when I did. The second I traded him, I knew it was going to happen. He's now the best player in baseball.
Single day. I feel like I get 5 push notifications from the MLB app about something that he's done.
He had 3 homers in a game.
Since you traded him.
We had
amazing.
him for 4.5 years or whatever, and could not. All he did was strike out. I think he struck out, 30 times in April? Now he's Mike Trout.
Could not make contact at all. Very happy for Megan Schuster. Ringer's resident Twins fan, Megan Schuster.
Well, that's the thing with these playoffs is you have Angels fans, Twins fans, and Orioles fans. Just to get to a wild card game is the highlight of their decade.
Listen, every day here with you is a highlight of my life.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel the same way.
Thank you. The best sporting moment of my life. And remember, I root for the Ravens.
Your life.
Who have
You've won 2 Super Bowls. But those, talk about PEDs and tainted.
Maryland
you
basketball.
can't feel good about those.
The best sporting moment of my conscious fandom was when the Orioles finally made the wild card game and beat Yu Darvish in 2012. Those 3.5 hours were everything to me because just getting there represented, in my mind, an achievement that to that point I had not thought possible. And I regularly think about that and how it made me feel. It was just electric and energizing. And I was like, I'm good now for a really long time. Now I would love for the Orioles to win a World Series in my lifetime. That would be great. That would be wonderful. Series. Love for them to make the World Series.
You weren't alive in 83, right?
No, 86. I was born in 86.
So you missed everything.
Yep. Yeah.
I was there for 83.
Yeah.
Solid team.
Yeah, great stuff. I just have, my dad's memories passed down to me.
Well, the Orioles are 40-1.
Boy. The Orioles are not.
KC 75-1, Seattle 75-1, Rangers 75-1.
I don't take really the Mariners.
No,
super seriously.
It seems like they're almost kind of in seller mode a tiny bit.
The only reason I'm allowing myself to buy in ever so slightly for the O's is that the Dylan Bundy extra rest thing seems to have unlocked some like other previously unknown plane of existence for him.
What was his last start? It was a monster start.
12 strikeouts,
Yeah.
complete game, one hit. I think like the I saw in the Sun, the only other Oriole ever who had like had that exact stat line was Mike Messina.
Oh.
Great company.
Yeah.
But
Mike Messina, just good enough to take you to the 6th game of the World Series and lose.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. Machado's on fire. Scope is having an incredible
Well,
season.
let's look at the recipe, right? You have one great starter, potentially. You have 2 relievers you like, maybe 3. Do you like O'Day this year?
A lot of concerns about O'Day this year.
So you got 2
I
relievers you
actually
like.
am really worried about the bullpen in general. I still don't think Britton's healthy. I mean,
I can vouch for that. I get he's on my team. He's the red flag every once in a while. They're like, his knee should be fine. It's like, what's wrong with his knee? Is he good or is he not good?
I've never been totally sold on Brock. I like Givens a lot. I think that he has the chance to. His stuff is so good that
Your
he could
bullpen's
go.
fine. It might be better than fine if Britton's healthy in October.
The thing is, can an Oriole fan ever again think the bullpen is fine? Like, let's never ever forget that
The
Zach
tragic
Britton
events
did
of
not pitch in
October or
that
whatever.
game.
Yeah. And then you have Machado, who's
Carry that to
the
the
best
grave.
slugger in baseball right now, except for Stanton.
He's incredible. It's an amazing thing to watch him play baseball every day.
So 40-1, maybe.
I don't know. I believe. I'm allowing myself to believe.
The team that's got to be mad is the Royals because they could have had the fire sale last month and got deceived into thinking they were a playoff team.
That's
and
the thing about
they're-
the second wild card, though. Like, every team basically believes that it's still alive. There are only 3 or 4 teams come trade deadline that are actually convinced that they're out of it. Like, unless you were as bad as basically the Braves or the Phillies this year, you sort of thought you had a chance, right? And the fact that the Orioles, for example, are back in it shows that you kind of do. I mean, okay, let's talk about the Twins. They traded for Garcia.
Yeah.
Because they thought they were in it. A couple days of bad baseball passed, and then they're like, actually, we're out of this. Traded him to the Yankees,
That
and
was
now
smart
they're back in it.
he's like the mole in the Yankees. He's
It's true,
destroying
and
them from the inside.
they ultimately ended up with like a better return. But it's it's an insight into how quickly this really can all change.
If I had to bet on any of these to actually win the pennant, I think the Yankees at 7-1 are the best odds because you could make a case that they swooned at the right time.
Yeah.
And could come back at the I'm just saying purely from the odds.
So they're the college
7-1
basketball
is
team
fair.
that has a great regular season and then actually does itself a favor by losing the opening game of the conference tournament.
Yes.
Get it out of the way, and then
Yes.
you're ready for the NCAAs.
That's the case for the Yankees.
Interesting.
Because we know that
Counterpoint.
they at least have the bullpen arms, which you're going to need.
True.
Unless Chapman is
Though-
just a
right.
Section 8. We don't know.
Yeah, he has been terrible. Like, just not getting the swings and
It's
misses.
been terrible, but yet he still was throwing 103. It looks like his knees are starting to go on him is the thing that scares me with him.
The velocity has been steady, but he's not getting the whiffs. Again, Zach Cram, man, so many name drops for Zach Cram on
Zach
today's
Cram.
podcast. He wrote a really good piece a couple weeks ago examining the shoulder angle and the release point and how that is clearly impacting the strikeout rate and the effect there. Yeah, they have a great bullpen. Aaron Judge went from being Babe Ruth to being Aaron Judge from last year. And
But
that's a huge change.
Is he really going to hit 150 for the rest of the year? Like at some point, he's going to figure it out.
Why do you think that had been the player he was until this point, until the beginning of this season? He was a guy with incredible pop who could not make contact, who struck out constantly and had a low average. He was Joey Gallo, right? And now maybe that's
So they
who he
figured
really
out
is?
something. They figured out something with him. I do think there's something to him being hurt too.
yeah.
He's got some sort of thing. Benintendi, my man, has a chance at the
Rookie of the
ROI.
year. Wow.
Has a chance.
I don't know. I think
He
Judge
could be a
just-
25-25 guy.
I
Good
think
defense.
Judge had such an otherworldly first half. I think it's the kind of thing where most people just made their decision then and don't reassess it. What do you think about the National League? Or do you just think it's the Dodgers
This
and
is
no
when
one
I start
else?
following.
Yeah.
This month, September is when I start looking at the National League.
Dodgers are slumping a little bit
know.
right now. They're
But
slumping.
that was so inevitable, though.
If Bryce comes back healthy, I think the Nationals are really, 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 really good. Strasburg looks great. Scherzer is one of the 3 best pitchers in baseball, right?
But they're the Nats. They're the Nats, Capitals,
Anthony Rendon,
Wizards.
low-key MVP candidate this year. He's been almost flawless in every aspect of the game.
I'm gonna give you the yachts for the NL Championship. They're plus 340, second best odds. Dodgers plus 110. Cubs plus 400, which I think is interesting because Quintana had a good start this week.
Yeah, the Cubs are good.
D-backs 12-1. Rockies 17-1.
Wow.
The
It would be
Rockies,
fun to see the Rockies. The Rockies are fun.
but I wouldn't want to play them in a playoff series because that weird park, you know? It's just weird to go like all of a sudden you have 3 and 4 in Colorado and it's 1-1 heading to Colorado and you got to win a game there.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially think about the other teams in the National League. They're certainly have home run hitters, but they're really built around their pitching. So you lose that edge if you're playing at Coors. It would be really fun to see Nolan Arenado in the playoffs, and I say this as somebody who is married to a Rockies fan and spends basically 75% of my life
You're married to a
caught
Rockies
in
fan?
the Arenado versus Machado debate.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Adam's a Colorado sports
How do we
fan.
not have cameras in your house?
It's tough. It's really tough.
Postmates orders and Rockies arguments.
It's really tough. We have to have
Dodgers-
2 TVs so we can have the Oriole and the Rocky games on.
Dodgers plus 110 is a pretty good bet, in my opinion. You're basically even odds that the Dodgers, who have been the most dominant team of the year, is just going to take care of business for 2 straight rounds.
It's despite
Seems like a fair
Kershaw's,
bet.
despite Kershaw's, I guess saying checkered playoff history would be
Yeah.
putting it charitably. Despite that, there's no one you'd actually rather have on your team in the playoffs than him because he's the best player in baseball. I love Yu Darvish. He's my favorite non-Oriole. I think he's just thrilling to watch. If he's healthy, having a Kershaw Darvish 1-2 punch in the playoffs there's just nobody else has anything close to that other than I think the Scherzer Strasburg combo if they're both healthy. So
High upside with Darvish, too, in those playoff Dodger games.
oh my God.
I think that crowd's going to, if he gets going, he's got like the 5 strikeouts after 2 innings type of
Totally.
thing.
And-
the crowd's going to be going crazy.
Puig is good again.
Puig's good again.
And he energizes
That's the best
the crowd.
storyline of the year.
I know.
I love that Puig's good again.
It's really amazing.
Guess what? Little kids like Puig.
Kids
My
like
son's
Puig.
all in on Puig.
The Dodgers are secretly really fun. I
Yeah,
think
I
they have a
agree.
reputation as being kind of like predictable
They have to
and
get rid
dull.
of Gonzalez. He was
Yeah.
the most boring good player in the league for like 10 years.
Totally. But Puig is great. I mean, Seager is one of like the
Ballinger.
10,
Yeah.
15 most exciting young players in baseball. Bellinger is, Judge Light. So they're
Some
awesome.
good baseball hairdos.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
What's your favorite hairdo right now?
Oh, I ride hard for Bryce for the Harper hair. The flip that he does when he takes the helmet off, it's masterfully executed every time.
You like the longer hair?
Well, not
What kind of facial hair
not
do you
as
like?
a general rule. Like for example,
I'm saying with your baseball players.
Your boy Benintendi should get a trim.
I'm with you.
It's ridiculous.
He looks like he's in the 8th grade
Yeah.
and hasn't gotten his haircut for the class photo yet.
terrible. In general, I like a tighter fade. I live in LA. I'm surrounded by hipster fades and undercuts
I'm just
all the
talking
time.
baseball. What's your favorite look?
We're surrounded by Mets fans, so I've become allergic to the long hair.
I don't like the long hair either.
just because of being forced to think about Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom at all times. Who has good hair right now other than Harper? Trout has an abominable haircut right now.
Trout just needs a makeover.
It's a disaster. He has no idea how to be a superstar. It's like oddly charming, but if I'm Manfred and I'm trying to make baseball marketable and interesting to young people,
Makeover time.
I beg Mike Trout to try to be cool next year. I beg him.
My mom, who goes to a lot of wine stuff in the Beverly Hills area because she's a wine junkie, was at a wine restaurant place and Mike Trout sat next to her with a friend. And she called after and was like, I sat next to Mike Trout? He's really a famous baseball player? Like, she was stunned. She said he had like no celebrity aspect to him.
Oh my God.
He
That's
just
incredible.
didn't feel famous.
No. Yeah.
That's the problem with Mike Trout. Bryce Harper feels famous.
Oh, yeah. Bryce Harper is a celebrity and wants to be a celebrity and knows how to be. I mean, I think Judge has a little bit of that in him. Maybe.
He's super likable. But
Trout does
it's
not.
going to hurt if he's going to hit 150. All rise. Sorry, Yankee fans. You still getting up? No, he struck out again. Uh-oh. My bad.
Thrilling.
Somehow his baseball cards are still going through the roof. I mean, his baseball cards, it was the biggest rush for anybody that there's been in a long time.
People like home runs.
All right, so we pick our sleeper picks. We don't have any sleeper picks. Bets, anything? What do we recommend? You recommend the Nats at plus 340, and you kind of like the Twins at 25-1 a tiny bit, no?
I can't see the Twins actually making the playoffs.
So
I think the Angels or the Orioles get that second wild card.
So you would recommend the Orioles at 40-1?
No, I can't do that in good faith. I'll say yes, but I'll also issue the caveat that you absolutely cannot trust my opinion on the Orioles. And also, it's important to remind everyone that I have cost you a lot of money in the past with my gambling advice.
You're
and just
terrible.
Should not be trusted, period.
I don't know why I'm asking you. The fact that you don't like the Yankees 7-1 makes me like it a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, I hate that.
By the way, for those of you listening, I would never, ever bet on the Yankees in a million years. Ever. In fact, I hope I jinxed them. All right, last thing, Thrones, really quickly.
Yeah.
Did you cry at the end? Did you cry when it was over?
Oh, I sobbed. I mean,
you and Jason, you have this connection now that's like,
I
don't know what it is. You're like the three-eyed raven for each other.
I say this sincerely. It is one of the most beautiful things in my life. I really cherish it.
It's spent really so much time together.
It's really special to me. We did.
You didn't want it to end. The last one was like 2 hours. The last binge bone you did. I know. And much to my chagrin.
Last 15 minutes are basically just us weeping. But people really responded to that. It's amazing. So many people telling us how meaningful that was to them, which is awesome. And
that's nice.
It's just what makes The Ringer special? It's a bunch of people who are obsessed with things that they love. And like when you get to totally put that part of yourself out into the world, or work with someone like Jason who not only like acknowledges that you feel that way and doesn't make fun of you but shares that with you, it's just awesome. So Thrones is really fun and special in general, and getting to just like completely nerd out about it and obsess over it and have that resonate with people was like a life highlight. Really, it was awesome.
Well, it was great content.
Thanks, man. I hope season 8 of Game of Thrones is better than season 7 was, but
it took a long time to get. Now we're in the spoiler alert part, and we'll go quick because this pod was too long already. But it seemed like they had like 4 objectives for the season.
Yeah.
And it took 7 episodes to get to where they wanted to go, which was hooking up Jon and Dany, and with the big reveal.
Yeah.
To kill off Littlefinger, to give the White Walkers a dragon. And what was the 4th thing? The one more major objective.
Jon's parentage.
Oh, Jon's parentage.
The Rhaegar-Lyanna marriage.
Those were the 4 objectives of the year, and it was a little circuitous. And I don't understand why they had to do the thing with the sisters where they had to fake us out with what they was really up to. I thought that was just weird storytelling.
That was far and away my least favorite part of the season.
Yeah, and I just don't. It was like the intentional swerve just for the audience only, with no wink at all.
And also because like seeing Sansa and Arya stand on the Winterfell battlements and recite Ned's words to each other and refer to each other as sister is something that people who care about this story have been waiting years for. Like their respective arcs have been among the greatest highlights of the story, and seeing them unite when they had always been divided, that's something people desperately wanted. And so to basically toy with us and deprive us of that for a few extra episodes for no reason to get to an end game Littlefinger stuff that everyone knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
Extremely puzzling. I will say I thought, despite the unfortunate nature of the path to that point, I thought the death itself was poetic and
was great,
symbolically kind of beautiful. Like the guy who his entire role in the story is basically to be the master manipulator, the guy who always thinks he's one step ahead. You know, Varys is the one who's called the spider, but Littlefinger is really always weaving the webs. And for him to get caught up in one of those and to be taken down by Sansa, his protege, basically because he taught her too well, like the hubris and the arrogance to have her parrot his own words back into his face. That was satisfying. That was good. And just the mirror image of, you know, when he betrayed Ned in the throne room in King's Landing in season 1, putting the blade up to his throat, surrounded by onlookers. This was like the mirror image of that. And so for him to go down in that way, it was extremely satisfying.
The biggest flaw they did, not to belabor it, but just, I just don't, that the whole exit plan with Jon Snow and the White Walkers and just everything about that was, it was such a misfire. And I actually like Concepcion's theory that their third dragon saved Jon Snow and they screwed up the CGI or the shot.
That he was supposed to ride off Rhaegal?
They had to audible with this other ridiculous ending, but everything about that was so stupid. If you have the dragons, hop on one of the dragons and just point out the White Walkers to Dany and then get the hell out of there.
Yes.
I thought that was, I don't know. I just didn't like that, but.
That was poor storytelling choices. It's the actual like macro level choice there is bad. So many things within that were puzzling. Like for characters to stand next to Jon, Jorah, Beric, and to say, "Hey, the Night King, you keep talking about how you looked into his eyes. He's right there.
Yeah.
Go kill him, and his entire army of the dead will fall because we just learned in a prior scene in this episode that if you kill a White Walker, the zombies, the whites that he turned also fall.
Yeah.
Go kill him.
Just get one of them.
And for Jon to be like, no, that's not why we're here, when that's the entire point and the only thing he talks about is the Great War. Stuff like that is bad. But, I thought in general, flaws like that aside, it was a pretty thrilling Jon-centric season for fans of fantasy and
they
the
did a
hero's
wonderful
journey.
job of not revealing how short he is most of the time. They made like one or two short jokes
at his expense, though.
But in general, the camera work was really good this year.
That's like someone needs to, get Kit Harington those scripts in advance or something. That is really tough. And also, as Jason has pointed out on Binge Mode and on Talk of the Thrones, like Emilia Clarke is like 5 feet tall. So for her to be like, he's too short, tough. I don't know.
It's a nice match for them.
They seemed like they were, your daughter's in the room, so I'll try to keep this PG. They seemed like they were properly physically aligned when it mattered.
I've noticed that they've scaled back the sex a little on Thrones. You look back to season 1 versus now.
There wasn't nearly enough sex in this season.
No.
At all.
No,
I mean,
they could have stepped it up. No brothel scenes. Where was the random brothel scene?
And not only do we not get just gratuitous brothel action, but Tyrion took a shot at Roz and the northern brothels. How dare you? That's a sacred, holy space. But yeah,
Jesus.
I mean, the Grey Worm Missandei scene, obviously a highlight in Thrones lore, but it was, they were really few and far between. It's tough.
You feel like mentally you've come back a little? We were all worried about you.
I feel a deep emptiness.
You really lost your mind with the outlines. I just want people to know how hard Mallory and Jason worked on that show, to the point that we genuinely worried about your physical and mental well-being. But now it's okay. You made it through.
Appreciate that. And just want to stress that it was a labor of sincere and true love, and that we cannot wait to do it again.
Should we announce the next binge mode? Oh, wait, we don't have an idea for it yet.
The people have spoken on Twitter.
Harry Potter?
They want it. Thousands of requests. They want it.
I would say twist your arm isn't exactly a tough one for you on that one.
Would be
I was thinking Harry Potter too.
The honor of a lifetime. Zoe, I'm gonna make a convert of you yet. She's gonna love it.
My daughter does not.
She's gonna love it by the time we're through. Yeah.
How many episodes would a Harry Potter binge mode be?
Oh my goodness. Who's to say?
How many movies?
8 movies. Then there's also the Fantastic Beasts movie if you want to really do the expanded universe. 7 books, companion texts.
And Concepcion is in this as well as you? Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, looks like that's where we're heading. Well, thank you for an incredible job.
Thank you.
It was really fun to create a little franchise within the franchise.
Thank you for letting us do this. I wish everyone out there could work for a boss like Bill and work at a place. I'm getting emotional. Work at a place where you can do things you love. It's awesome.
You're Kyle's favorite ringer
it's
employee.
Awesome. Kyle's my favorite ringer employee.
All right. This is great. What a love fest. Thanks to Kevin O'Connor. Thanks to Simply Safe. Remember, it's the final days of Simply Safe's home security. A huge summer sale, $100 off the special summer package. You get a system fully equipped to protect your home and family with alarm monitoring and police dispatch. You'll always know your home is safe. No long-term contract to lock you in. This sale ends September 3rd. That's $100 off. Just go to simplysafe.com/BS. Thanks to DraftKings. They are celebrating the return of football by giving you a shot to be crowned the first ever fantasy football billionaire. Draft the perfect lineup in the free $100,000 fantasy football contest. Week 1. And you can win $1 billion. Do me a favor. Use code Simmons and play for free. Only at DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Thanks to Origins, Jim Miller's new podcast that launches on September 6th. Thanks to SeatGeek for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NFL tickets. Use promo code BSNFL. And thanks to TheRinger.com. Go there this weekend. Read all of our stuff, including an incredible Superbad 10-year anniversary piece that has everybody in it. And that's where you will find my column on Fridays, starting with football season. That's it. Enjoy the Labor Day weekend. We will see you on Tuesday with Guess the Lines. Guess the Lines. Guess the Lines. Year 11 with Cousin Sal. Until then.